Welcome to another edition of Talking Models. Today we're going to look at this beautiful piece entitled Crazy Am I? Produced by Monsters in Motion and sculpted by Bryan Moore. This is just a stunning piece to me. It portrays Colin Clive in his role as Dr. Frankenstein. It portrays so much in this simple sculpt that you see before you. Let's take a look at it. You get this beautiful sculpt of Dr. Frankenstein here as portrayed by Colin Clive. You get this nice base dungeon floor. You get, of course, his machine here that helped breathe life into Frankenstein. You get a nice little small section of wall. I kind of spin it around so you can see it here. Of course, he's in the famous lab coat that he wore when him and Fritz brought Boris Karloff as Frankenstein to life in that film we all know and love, Frankenstein. You know, I recently, it's probably been a year now, I read the actual novel by Mary Shelley. If you haven't read that book, give it a shot. I mean, it is just beautiful, beautiful words. And it's a good story that started how we love the film today. So check it out. So as you can see, we'll kind of continue to go around this piece. I just love how Bryan captured that look. You know, if you remember that moment in the film when he asked them, "Crazy am I?" You know, a lot of the organizations back then stifled that film because of some of the words that he spoke when he said, "Now I know what it feels like to be God." You know, I'm a Christian and I know there is no other gods but God. He was going through, to me, a process in his mind of probably being near sanity. I mean, he brought someone back from the dead. He created another person bit by bit, part by part. And in a sense, he did create him. So that is why I believe he mumbled those words and said those words that he did in the film. Thankfully, they put that part of the film back because I think it gives us a little more deeper look into his mindset, into the character that he portrayed. And again, sadly, Colin Clive did suffer from depression, you know, which ultimately took his life. So, again, I just think this is so beautifully done. The sculpt. I mean, you can see all the folds in the lab coat, the strings that tie the back of it together. Bryan captured all that so nicely. The wall, the dials, the handles that he threw to spark life into Frankenstein. All within a nice, compact piece. You know, and as my collection has grown, my wife would say probably too big, space becomes a problem. This to me is just perfect. It sits on the shelves behind me and it portrays so much within the piece. So we're going to talk a little bit about what I did. His lab coat, basically I came in over black and I just started airbrushing in some gray. I started with a neutral gray, airbrushed the complete piece. Then what you do is, for what I did with this, is I came back in with transparent Payne's gray. And you start just kind of toning the white, gray down. And you want to get a little bit heavier in some areas of it where the folds meet. You want to kind of just hit the shadows, is what I did with this. And then again, for me, my technique is I come in with transparent black, kind of tone it down. and then back in with the gray to hit all the highlighted areas, which includes all the folds, the strings that tie the lab coat together, all the highlighted areas, and then you want to come a little bit heavier within the folds with your transparent Payne's Gray. Transparent Payne's Gray is such a great way to highlight and shadow in white. It just seems kind of weird, but it works. It's just a perfect color to use to shade white. It also works with gray. And again, between the combination of the gray and the transparent black, you get what you see here. So basically that's all I really did with his lab coat. His pants over the black was airbrushed with tie-in brown, and again back into the folds with the transparent black to tone everything down. Again, his shoes used the same brown but a little bit heavier, and some little bit of highlights with the different brown. You can use darker browns, whatever you decide to use. This one I believe I used straight up brown, and I actually dry brushed it a little bit out of the Delta cream coat line. Bottom of it I kind of left more of a black look to it, just a hint of black around the sole area, if you will, the bottom of the shoe. And that's how I tied all this together. Now for his face, again, I'm such a fan of the suntan flesh, and I believe this one was done a while back, so I still use the old Badger Freak Flex suntan flesh. You gotta thin that down. Don't spray it straight out of the bottle, or you will be taking your airbrush apart. Believe me, it may or may not have happened to me. So once you get that suntan flesh in, you can start coming back in and building up the areas. A lot of pastel work here, variety of browns, variety of burnt sienna. Again, concentrate on that hairline where it transitions into the skin from the hair. So I use a little bit more heavier in that area, if you will. His lips, I actually used Pink Eye Burgundy from the Badger Freak Flex line, and I just kind of directly painted that on. Came in with some reds on the bottom of his eyes. You got to remember, he didn't get much sleep. He was too busy creating the monster. So you want to kind of accent that, a sunken in look, tired. You know, kind of like you get when you've had a long weekend and you got to get up for Monday. It's like The Walking Dead, isn't it? So that's what you want to try to accomplish in this piece. Just kind of shade it in, sink it in, and then build it up with your pastels. This piece you can also airbrush it in with your, I'm sure you all have an airbrush that you use for fine detail work. This scale does work with that. I just chose to keep it simple. A lot of times you can take a pastel and complete a whole face just with pastels. Once you get your base coat down, you can just bring it to life with that. Good example of that is in Model Mania 5, I believe, or when David Fisher addresses the Janus Dracula. Check it out and see what he does with Dracula's face with pastels. David, you rock. So you can do that with this, and that's basically what I did with him. It just kind of shaded everything you see in here with a combination of browns and reds, and also that one of my favorite in the pastels is like a burnt sienna. It works with this flesh tone. Then after it was all done to my liking, I came back in with pale flesh from Freak Flex Badger, and I would just hit all the highlights, top of the forehead, cheekbones, nose, chin, and a little bit follow along his line of his face here. His hair, however, the black was dry brushed with brown. Again, I believe I used a Delta cream coat, dark brown, and you just dry brush it all in and blend it in nicely. Same for the eyebrows. Let's see here. And then for his hands, same treatment, same coloring. As you can see, the veining, I went with a little bit of a blue. If you look at your veining under your skin, you see a hint of blue. And then you kind of just, again, work the pastels. You can see some reds in here, kind of the distressed look to his hands I tried to accomplish in this. And that completed his hands and his face. Now for the base. Lots of fun on this one. Everything, again, base coated in black. There's a variety of colors. This was an experiment for me. I thought, okay, dungeon floor, let's go with straight up grays, right? That's too simple for me. So again, I did come in with some grays to start out. Came in with some reds, if you see in here, some browns. I just kept experimenting. I would use some red. Is more of like a, I don't know, I guess it would be like a burnt sienna transparent. Just kind of started misting certain areas. Came in with some transparent raw umber. Bring it back down. Came in with some trans black on all the cracks of the floor. And I kept going back and forth. Then of course I finished with a little bit of heavier brownish in the center of each block. Just to give it a different look, kind of like a dungeon floor, but dirty, like it's been rusted. It's been sitting there, and it's just over time, things deteriorate, just like our bodies, right? So with that done, that kind of, for me, dictated what I was going to do with the rest of it. Kind of followed the pattern here on the back wall, same as the floor. I added some greens along here to like a mossy, like maybe there had been water in there at one time. You know, and I just kind of came out of my imagination, if you will, which can be scary, especially now after the accident. And I kind of just built some greens up to dictate that mossy, been there, water sitting for years look. And that's what I did along the bottom of the walls. Now again, on the control panel, if you will, over black, there's a combination of things going on here. My red oxide, which to me over black looks like rust, as you can see. The trick is getting closer with the airbrush on that, and it'll give you that rusted look. If you go back further, it gives you a nice reddish tone down, but if you're looking for the rust look, get in there and you'll see what I mean. Don't be afraid. If it gets too red for you or too rusty looking, transparent black takes care of it. Boom, done. So you'll see a different bunch of combinations of colors. Straight up silver for the knobs, handles. Left the bottom of the switches black. You can see red oxide through here. We have some red airbrushed there on the dials. Some silver on the top, and hand brush some reds in here. Then came in with some neutral gray and kind of just got closer here and just kind of highlighted this area so it looks a little bit different than everything else. And you can see the contrast that you get. Heavier with the red oxide in the bottom area here. Electrodes, I basically did some gold along the bottoms of the electrodes. And I wanted to kind of make these look like they were kind of lit up. Again, yeah, there's so many things you could do with stuff like this. If this would have been casted in like a clear resin, there's a little bit of a hint for you, Terry, if you're watching this. I hear you may be re-releasing this kit. Just an idea. Maybe even cast some of this clear. You can actually put, if this was clear, you could light those up and it will look pretty cool as lit, you know, like he's ready to operate. But since I couldn't do that, I just decided to use Badger Freak Flex Sunburn Red, and I airbrushed it over the black, which gives you this look. And that's basically the whole kit in a nutshell. So much you could do with this. If I ever did another one of these, I think I might try, and I keep threatening this, and now I'm going public with it, is one day I would like to try to paint something in a grayscale. I see so many talented people out there doing it. Jeff Camp, you're amazing. Susan Attree, oh my gosh, the things you're doing with those micro kits from Blackheart. Bravo, young lady. You know, so many people that are taking that step. I actually went as far as to buy a grayscale set from George at Blackheart. They still sit on the shelf over there. One day I will attempt that. This would just look so cool done that way. You know, just the old school, black and white, Dr. Frankenstein. Crazy am I. So this is a kit, if you're a fan of Bryan Moore, his kits were always different. To me, they were almost caricature in nature, but spoke so much volume. You know, this is one of those pieces. And I encourage you to check it out. You can hit Terry Rex up at Monsters in Motion and check out the status of the re-release of this beautiful kit. And I encourage you, go for it. It'll be one of the highlights in your collection. And if you're running out of shelf space, boom, this one will fit right in there and be one of the centerpieces of your collection. So again, I appreciate you stopping in today. I appreciate your support of Talking Models with Troy Nayert. I encourage you to subscribe. Share this channel with some of your modeling friends. Ask questions. Let's talk models. That's what this is, Talking Models with Troy Nayert. Guess what? I'm Troy Nayert, and I like to talk about models. Ask my wife. Ask my friend Scott. We talk monsters, don't we, Scott? And it's just something we love to do. So again, thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day today, and may God bless.